Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to another episode of Everybody Loves Bliss. I, of course, am Bliss, and on the other side with me is my good buddy and co-host, Ross Cooper. Say hi to the people, Ross.
What up, everybody?
How you doing?
I'm pretty groovy. All things considered, I'm pretty groovy.
I like your shirt.
Thank you, thank you.
For the people who are listening to us and not seeing us, he has on a shirt that says "Believe Women." That's a good place to start as I take my first sip. No, seriously, I like the shirt. I like the shirt. I
Thank you,
like the
thank you.
sentiment. I definitely like the sentiment of the shirt. So your week's been good?
Yeah, pretty good. I get on the plane tomorrow. Go have a little fun over the weekend, ideally. Yeah.
Ooh. Oh, for Valentine's weekend, you're going away and flying and having. Are you going to tell the people about your trip? What's going on? You're going to tell us when you before you go or when you get back.
I can tell you before I go because it has nothing to do with Valentine's Day weekend. It just so happens to be this weekend.
Uh-huh.
My play big sister opened the gym,
Okay.
and me being a fitness guy and a lover of all things fitness, I'm gonna go check it out.
Okay. Well, tell us about your romance stories when you get back, because we it's Valentine's Day weekend. You're the guy from out of town. You're bound to. That's how it
Yeah,
happens. It's a whole love story.
that's
It's
hilarious. Yeah.
waiting to happen, Ross. It's waiting to happen, and I know the audience believes it too. So anyway, this episode actually is going to be about, let's say, complicated love. I think that's a good way to put it based on what we're going to talk about today. Like
Yeah.
we have complicated love situations we're going to talk about. But anyway, let's get started. So let's first update on some of the things we talked about last week. And before we do that, I'm getting ready to miss this moment. I just want to send my prayers and condolences to the family of Mary Wilson, who was one of the founding members of the iconic girl group, the Supremes. One of the most phenomenal and legendary girl groups that ever was and ever will be. Um, she passed away the other day. Suddenly, there's really we don't have any information on really what happened with Miss Wilson, and we're sad to see her go. I know that just kind of like Miss Cicely Tyson, she had been not necessarily doing the circuit, but had been on TV or done an interview and looked beautiful and vibrant, and just the picture of health. And then 2 days later, um, she's not here with us. So I send prayers and condolences out to her family. We certainly appreciate the mark she left on R&B music, her contribution to Motown and to the Motown sound, and she will be missed. Never forgotten, but missed. So with that, so now let us do some updates from last week because we were talking about some stories that we knew were going to unfold. So Ti and Tiny. We talked about their situation last week about the accusations, and we were coming from the perspective of the story is only important really if it's abuse. And obviously, MTV Entertainment, who um, produces their show, The Family Hustle, has decided to suspend production on the show. Uh, Not surprising when there's accusations of sexual abuse, not just towards, I can't talk, towards grown women, but to young underage girls as well. So, on the side of safety, the show is canceled. I mean, really not anything to say to that, but MTV Entertainment had to cover their ass.
You can't. We're well, we're actually starting to believe women to a certain degree. You can't be on the wrong side of things like this. It's much easier to come back and say, all right, here's your show back, everything's blown over, than to have them be found guilty and have people question, well, why didn't you cancel them in the first place?
Yeah.
So it's a flip flop here. We're not. Can't be on the wrong side of that. You
Yeah.
just can't be on the wrong side of it.
Yeah. And I mean, if if they're being accused erroneously, if there's some uh um if this is some kind of revenge thing that the woman who's accusing them, a friend of theirs, Sabrina, was it Sabrina Parsons, I think her name was, is that
Something like that. Yeah.
something like that? If she's doing this for trying to get revenge or for other reasons than to actually expose the truth, then hopefully that'll be exposed. But just to let you know, she is interviewing witnesses, people she claims are witnesses who have been at the hands of who have been abused at the hands of Tiny and Ti. I don't know what she's planning on doing with the information besides turning it over to the police. I don't know if there's a documentary, a la, Surviving R. Kelly coming with this. I don't know if there's a Surviving Ti coming with this. But here's my deal with that: if they have been abusive, if they have been in a situation where they brought in underage girls, then uh, you know, what you're going to say to that? I mean, you can't. There's no defending that. I think
It's
the
not.
abuse is going to be harder to prove because you can sign up for abuse. Folks for the right money will sign an NDA and sign up for abuse. So that's very different. But when you talk about underage girls, 16, 17, 15-year olds, yeah, we need to know the truth on that. So we'll see what happens with that. I think that there's going to be a while before we get any real truth on what happened with that story. There it is. That's done. Um, Indonesia. We talked about the young woman Christine Gray in Indonesia being deported. Well, in the good old "Everyone Loves Bliss" email, we did receive. What is wrong with me talking today? We did receive an email from one of our listeners, and I'm pulling it up right now, that talks about a white couple was actually deported from Indonesia in June of 2020 for having the audacity to try to arrange a mass yoga event there. So the Indonesian government found out about it. This particular information that they sent, they didn't send me any names. And thank you to PG Success One for sending me this email in reference to the story. So okay, so that happened. Here's the deal with that. I, I get it. It still doesn't say that there might not be a little bit of racism in Indonesia. But like I said before, that situation, I didn't write it off as just that. I think that there were a lot of contributing factors. So okay, so Indonesia is just not having it from Americans, period, and I don't blame them.
And
Get
I'm
the
like,
hell out. You
okay,
out of pocket, get out. What?
I feel better. And I guess
Oh,
maybe
you
I don't know
feel
if I
better?
should feel better. I feel better
Why?
because the inherent issue that we always have in this country, especially, and to a lesser extent globally, when things happen to Black people, sadly, the immediate question thereafter is, well, would this happen if they were white? And we asked that question on the show. Ponder out loud, would this happen if they were a white couple, they're a white
Obviously, it
lesbian
wouldn't.
couple? Yeah, now we know. Yes, it would.
Obviously. I,
Yes, it would.
and I think that Indonesia is really being generous by throwing people out versus jailing them. I think so. So I think that that's fair. Just get the hell out of our country. Don't come back. Don't bring your ass back. You out of pocket. You got to go. Fair. I think that's fair enough. Okay. So
Okay.
the question was answered. So you feel? I'm glad you feel better, Ross.
Hey, it's not just us. Like, okay, the yoga couple got kicked out too. Like, oh
Right.
damn. All right.
Now it doesn't say anything in the information I have is if they were hetero or LGBTQ. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they were out of pocket. They got kicked out. So yeah. And the last thing that we talked about that people, kind of hit me about was the Marilyn Manson thing. I mean, it's still that's so messy. It's too much because this really isn't about these people. It's about what happens, what's fair. When we talked about Ti and Tiny, it's about you. Do we care if you got a third party? No. Do we care if Marilyn Manson has people that come in and do the, what is that, bondage? Yes, it has a, you know, relationship with people where they agree to be submissive to his dominant. But if it's abusive and there are claims of abuse, then that's different. So here, what we know is his ex-wife, Zadina Von Teese, basically publicly stated, "Look, I'm basically staying out of this." Um, but what she did say was that was not her experience. She wasn't supporting the accuser, and she's not supporting her ex husband either. She's like, "Look, I wouldn't have married him if that were the deal." That's what you're getting. So
Pretty
it'll
much.
still uncover itself. I'm pretty bored of it at this point, to be quite honest. I'm pretty bored of it. I mean, it is what it is. And he'll get his, you know, obviously we talked about last week, he's been canceled. And I joked with you, I don't know what he was canceled from because I didn't know what work he was doing, but okay. So great. So we okay. Listeners, we covered those things because you know we cover stuff based on what the listeners want us to. They'll send us stuff and they'll tell us they want to hear more of these stories.
Good for
That's
that.
what we have for you on those. Oh, so let's talk about the things that came through this week. Um, Before we get to the meat of what we're going to talk about. Van Jones and Nick Cannon. We're going to have a conversation about those two really briefly. Love, hate, love, hate. Van Jones and both Nick Cannon have been members of our community who have come under question more than once about their behavior, about their response to situations that they've seemed to put themselves in. So recently, Van Jones was on The View, and the ladies of The View kind of stuck it to Van Jones. Basically, Sonny Holston said to Van directly, "Look, the Black community doesn't trust you. You vacillate, you're back and forth. You try to play both sides. So basically, you know, you well, he was on there promoting some film he's doing with the what is the girl's name? McLean. Oh Lord. Uh Let me get the girl's name. But basically, you're on here promoting this new documentary doing you're doing, but we don't trust you. Just to let you know, the Black community doesn't trust you. You back and forth. One minute you're crying over Trump because he's glad he's leaving. He was crying or indignant and mad when Trump got elected, but in between took a many a picture at the White House. Was glad to be at the White House events.
Holding the umbrella.
That Jared Kushner's a good guy. All that old shit in between. So, and here's the other issue is that Van Jones claims to be a Democrat, but also, you know, in his trying to be fair to everybody, kumbaya, has on several occasions defended the Republican Party. Now, well, wait, because here's the deal. You and I on this show have spoken about both parties because we call out bullshit when we see it. And
Mhm.
I think we've fairly given credit where credit is due, both to the Republican side and to the Democratic side. I think one of the differences is neither one of us claims any party. So we don't have that issue of one side being upset with us because we're doing this thing over here or giving shine to the other side. That's one of the things that we don't have to worry about. The other thing is, I think that in watching some of the, and I call them antics of Mr. Jones, I think that they have borderline often on being a bit, I'm looking for a better word, but I just don't have one right now. A bit on the buffoonish side.
Like I said, it sometimes it seems like it's a short fence between him and your classic bootlicker. And it's like, brother, you ain't got to try so hard to be the safe Negro. It's okay. It's totally okay. And
Yeah,
that's my issue. Like you ain't got to try so hard to be down.
yeah, that's yeah. And you know, just to give you get an example, like New Year's Eve, where he was hosting the CNN special kind of in the studio with Jeffrey Lord. Jeffrey Lord, it has been notoriously um, anti-black, pro-Republican. He's been a mouthpiece. I haven't seen him on a lot lately, but like during the time of Trump's election, you would see Jeffrey Lord. Okay, this isn't about Jeffrey Lord. It's about the night that Jeffrey Lord and Van Jones were on CNN together, and they were bringing in 2017. And just as the moment was ending, Van Jones felt the need to kiss Jeffrey Lord on the cheek. He might have thought it was funny, but it really came off
Lame.
really lame and really a bit
Bit on the bit on
stepping.
the yes master side of things.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not, the only moment. There've been so many. Uh, that whole thing of, even as a Democrat, even that whole thing of hearing that Joe Biden had won the election and all that crying, and it makes it easier to be a father. Why?
Seems to be a dad.
Like, what are you, what, like, I don't, like all of these antics. It makes it so, like all the tears and all the emotion, and white liberals loved it. By the way, his like white liberal supporters loved it.
Really?
They did,
They
but
ate that up? They
some of
believe
them
that
really,
bush?
yeah, some of them really did. But because we talked about it, but like the ridiculousness of that moment. Like, you're not safer in the United States because Biden is in. You weren't safe when Trump was in. It was like weird. He could identify he was upset when Trump won, but then loved being at the White House with Trump. And it's whenever they invited him, he was like, "Oh, I'm so glad to be here." And then as soon as Trump is out, he's like celebrating like his whole life just began. So I get it. I mean, that's really a lot of dramatic back and forth. And it was weird to me because when Sonny Holston said to him, the black community doesn't trust you, he was like, "What are you talking?" Like he really didn't get it, unless he's just a great actor. Like, he didn't get it.
And that's the scary part. Like, okay, behind closed doors, I'm thinking like, bro, you can take the mask off now. Wait, you really believe your own bullshit, don't you? Like, wait, you really thought we rock with you? Oh, that's scary.
Well,
That's scary.
the difficult thing with him is that I don't think that this is a man with ill intentions. I really think that this is a guy with really good intentions. I really do. I believe that. It just it's just those moments are so lost because it always appears that in moments where he can just simply acknowledge or give credit, it always becomes this elaborate, over
Production.
the top, anti-key dance. Let me prove to you that I belong here. He was at a conservative convention. Remember, I sent you the video. He did some conservative convention, and he was talking about the conservatives were leading the fight in prison reform. No, Van, you ain't just now. Listen, I give credit to Trump for that bill he signed. Uh, you know, in reference to black colleges, he signed over so black folks got out of prison before he left. We gave the credit. We did it. You can acknowledge without, damn well conservatives and Republicans weren't leading no charge in prison reform. They did some things. Yes, they did. And you damn well should acknowledge. But neither side is doing enough. You got to call bullshit where bullshit lies. So you didn't have to go there, and I just challenge everyone to just go and watch the videos.
Mhm.
At a certain point, we'll be showing you videos. We're not there yet, so you got to go Google for yourself. But he's like, and y'all doing such a good job. Y'all taking my job away. And like, he got like, his voice got real high. It was like, what? Why do you have to, in these why is it always this performance you have to do? And I
Like,
think,
chill out, MC Shuck and Jive.
oh gosh, no, you didn't. Oh gosh, no, you didn't say
Like,
MC Shuckers.
I'm
Oh,
just
mm,
saying.
and see, You always got to go. See, I used to be the one that was always going too far. Here you come. MC Shuck and Jive. Is that what you? Oh,
Word.
and somebody's gonna hear this and that's gonna stick. Now I can't. Yeah, and see, he used to say, Van Jones follows me on Twitter. I done lost a follower. You done lost my he
You didn't say it, I did. Blame me.
well yeah, Van Jones, listen, Van, listen. We get it. You're a nice guy. You mean well. You just got to calm it all the way down. First of all, you need to be an independent, really and truly. That's what. Why
Word.
are you trying to play? Because you are. He is straddling the fence. Really, if you're an independent, you get to call out bullshit without somebody saying, "Well, you didn't. I thought you were you." Nope. You can truly be bipartisan or tripartisan by claiming yourself as independent. That's part of the mistake there, that he's a part of the Democratic Party and trying to play the game. But yeah, y'all got to go Google some of those messy moments. And they do now the Candace Owens. I thought that the one of the ladies on View mentioned he took a picture with Candace Owens and he was all smiley in the picture. She was really saying, she was really calling that a Sambo moment. That's what she was doing. She's like, you all smiley in the picture. That was code for.
Cool, you'll sell out ass.
That's
But
what
yeah,
that's what that was code
that,
for.
that was
When you
cool.
talk about black people with the big old grin, that's
Right.
that's what you're trying to say. That's really what she was trying to say.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if I thought that they had to go tell them to take a nap,
Right.
at the end of the show. I thought the ladies interviewed, they were a little harsh. But
That was
then
cold.
truth be told, we get it. You're the nice guy, but you got to reel that in.
Like,
You,
I
you
got
got to,
news for you, fam. Stop trying to be the safe Negro, because if you get pulled over in these streets, guess what's gonna happen?
right.
But I'm Vin Jones. Oh, oh, right.
Yeah. And that whole thing about your son, now his son is, he can talk to his kids and he feels safer with his, listen, I don't know what his kids look like because his kids are mixed. They're half, so I don't know if you playing that, my
Oh,
kids aren't really black thing.
oh,
You think
didn't
that they're
didn't.
safer, and because they're still, fan, listen. Your son gets pulled over by the police. Is it, if he's of age to do that? You, it ain't a safe world. It ain't
You
safe
gonna
for
get you
anybody.
gonna get that what we call a black wake up call, and that's never pretty. That's never a lot of these celebrities that well, a lot of these black celebrities want to straddle the fence get what's called their black wake up call. Sadly, Tiger Woods got a black wake up call.
Well, what about the ones that don't seem to get it? Like let's go on and get into it. Nick Cannon. I don't know what, like, we've talked about Cannon and so he got accused of anti-Semitism unfairly because when I said this, the conversation that that started that whole thing that he was trying to have with Professor Griff, formerly of in uh,
Public enemy.
Public Enemy. Lord, I was going to say NWA. Sorry about that. Public Enemy. He wasn't equipped to have the conversation. I love Nick
I'm
Cannon. He's a, love him like a brother. He seems like a nice enough guy. You are the wild and out guy. You ain't the guy to sit down and have, and I get what he was trying to do with that show. Like
yeah.
he went back to school and got all excited all around those fantastic professors like Dr. Carr. Dr. Carr, shout out to you, by the way, like Dr. Carr, who is phenomenal and in intelligent and so. And I guess Oh, wait a minute, I'm doing too much with this. On the for those of you who can't see me, I'm adjusting my shirt. I had to pause for a moment. Okay, I was giving too much. Okay, so he Nick so it was too much. I had to stop what I was saying.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
so Nick Cannon, and I get it, the excitement of being in that black surrounding. You're back at a black HBCU because he went back to school and just got a master's or something last year or something. So he started that whole podcast and he had all these black scholars on. Let them talk. That's what he really should have done, is just let them talk, trying to add to the conversation and not really being able to phrase what he was trying to say in the right way. And just because Professor Griff doesn't have anything to lose. So he could have just let
Right.
him have the floor.
And
Let
I'm
him know
kind of,
what to say.
I'm sorry, I'm
Sure.
laughing a little bit, not because it's funny, but in the sense of Brother Nick should have learned to read the room. Because when you started going down that rabbit hole, and even Professor Griff was like, "Ooh, yeah, that was your cue right there. Maybe you need to chill." When Professor Griff is like, uh, "Yeah, you should have chilled right there," but you went all the way down the rabbit hole.
He went all the way. And so he got accused of being anti-Semitic, then got fired, and then was like, I'm standing up for myself and I wasn't anti-Semitic. The next thing you know, he got all rabbis
My
in
bad.
there owning him, basically. Owning him and talking negative about Minister Farrakhan, and he's sitting there letting that happen. I mean, it just has been a mess. And then remember, he had the cryptic messages, and people were worried about him for a minute. Then he came back. Then he had a baby with some girl after the other girl was saying she was the girlfriend. Then he had a baby with some other girl, named the baby Powerful Queen. And I mean, it's like, Nick, listen,
If
okay, calm down.
doing too
But
much was a person.
well, doing too much, I guess, because he wanted his job back. So he got his job back on Wildin' Out. That Nick, look, you another brother that we know you don't mean no harm. You got good intentions. Your lane is Wildin' Out. Nick Cannon, I think is like 40. He looks younger, but he's like 40-ish. We get it. Maybe at a certain point in time, as a 40-year-old man, you want to assert yourself in a grown man way. Because we kind of see Nick Cannon as like the still like the little kid. But Wild and Out is your lane, baby. That's your lane. Not saying you won't grow and be able to do, you're not ready yet. Because you still, from our perspective, the Jewish community, you weren't able to have that conversation, and still, even when you went to have the conversation, it
You
just
kind of,
you didn't,
yeah.
not equipped.
You
It
gotta,
came. Go ahead.
if you're gonna make that transition from happy, jokey Nick to woke Nick, you really gotta be
Yeah.
on, yeah, be on your stuff. So you're not
Yes.
sitting here getting your ass handed to you
Right.
by these rabbis and such. Like and the funny thing is, Nick, we were riding with you for whatever it was worth. There was a lot of folk in the black community riding with you.
Yes,
Like,
we were.
cool, we
Yes, we
get it.
were.
Like, okay, cool. Middle fingers to the man, to the system. You're gonna stand strong. We're gonna stand with you. 10 toes down. Let's go, Nick. And
Right.
2 weeks later, you got the rabbi on, getting your ass handed to you. My bad. I had to go back and do some more research.
And wait a minute. And the other thing that was so horrible is you discounted all of those other scholars, all those black scholars, all of those brilliant black minds who have advanced the thought process and the self-esteem and the empowerment of black people. That was the other thing that happened during that time that really I was really incensed about that. But I've forgiven Nick Cannon. But Nick Cannon, you got to come. Now he got a Black Jewish coalition for entertainment business. Here's the thing, Nick, and I'm going to challenge you to this. I don't think that there's anything wrong when you're trying to unify a collective. But please do your due diligence, because here's the what gets messy with this is that any time that you challenge in that collective, the Jewish portion of that collective, and you challenge them on things in reference to who's original, when you start, you're never going to have a conversation on reparations, even though the Jewish communities have had reparations. I'm going to challenge you to see if that same Jewish community that wants to unify with the Black community is willing to support Blacks in reparations like the ones that
Mm,
they've received more than once.
mm.
Because if you can make that happen, if you can bring together a unified Black Jewish front, a collective of both, where Jewish folks are supporting Black folks in the getting the reparations they need and deserve, you have done something. Your coalition has made a difference. This whole thing that they're suggesting that this collective will go visit Black monuments and Jewish monuments and do works talking about the experience of Blacks and Jews. We have plenty of filmmakers that are already doing that and doing a damn good job of it. And that's great that you may want to add to that collective, but you are going out of your way to form this coalition. So you're not doing it. You're not doing it for us. You're not doing it for Black folks, because we didn't ask for that. But if you're doing it because you think that there's a need for it, please remember the need is in healing your community. Not healing just the relationship with blacks and Jews, but your community needs to be healed, and in ways that Jewish people need to. I don't mean any harm, but there are a lot of history with Jewish folks owning and sucking out up and out of the black community. So if we're gonna have this, if we're gonna have some truth in this coalition that you formed with Tiffany Haddish, by the way, if y'all can do it and tell some truth and not regurgitate old stories that we already know about, great. I'll support that. But if you just doing this because you want to make it seem like you're not anti-Semitic and you trying to have some healing that we didn't ask for,
Bruh.
uh,
Do better. Just do better.
okay, okay, that's another love-hate relationship we got here in our community. We do.
Mhm.
So let's go into something or an event that I don't know if it's an event or we let me just get to it. We finally saw Malcolm and Marie, the film that I told you I had been waiting for. Remember we talked about our love stories that we loved. Mine is still Sylvie's Love. Yours is The Photograph, and we had this third film coming that we were waiting on, waiting to see how Black love is going to be displayed on film because we love seeing that. We need it. This wasn't what we expected. It
Nah,
is.
this was this this
Woo.
this was a hard watch for me anyway. This was a hard watch. Like it took
Um,
me literally like 4 days to get through it.
it didn't take me 4 days to get to it or get through it. Rather, it took me. Um, I started, then I stopped, then I came back a few hours later, and I started, and I was able to get through.
Mm.
Um, for those of you who have not seen it, you probably want to turn this podcast off right now because we are going to give some spoilers. I know,
Spoiler alert.
spoiler alert. Um, the film, it's starring Zendaya and oh God, is it John Washington?
I believe so. Like
I keep calling
I'm
him
sad.
Denzel's son. That's so
Exactly.
bad.
Right.
That is
That's what
so
I do.
bad. I just refer to him as Denzel's son. What is the it's John, oh Lord. Anyway, it's John Washington. No, no,
Denzel, son.
John David Washington. Okay. John David Washington. Okay. And Zendaya. Is it Zendaya or Zendaya?
I've been going Zendaya.
Okay. We'll call it Zendaya for right now. If it's wrong, then we'll correct. We don't mind self-correcting. Anyway, the film was released on the 5th, 5 days ago. And I was so excited to watch. Like I said, I had to start and I was like, oh, this is okay. This this is not what I expected. And I had to stop and start. So the film is basically about a couple in this space. And first of all, I loved the fact that it was black and white. It added to the intensity. But a couple has just come home from the they're not married. The boyfriend's film release. He's a filmmaker who just had a screening of his film, a major screening of his film. And he's excited because from what you get, this is probably a bigger film than he's done. It's probably, and you get the idea that this is a main feature film with more backing. For those of us who are filmmakers, we know the excitement. We know the excitement is different when you make your little independent and when you've got some real backers behind your film. So, anyway, they've come home from this major film release screening, and what should be a happy moment is not a happy moment. Um, you are so I don't want to give the whole thing away, but basically the disconnect or the argument starts when we find out Malcolm has not thanked Marie when he went up to do his speech. He thanked everybody, including his mama, but he has not thanked Marie. And that's kind of where things start to open up. But like in all arguments with most couples, the argument is never really about that one moment. It's about like what has happened in the relationship for usually for the time that folks have been together, whether it's months, weeks, what have you, the long haul. Mr. Cooper,
Yeah, I'm listening.
are
I'm
you
just,
falling asleep on us on the camera? Are you,
mm, I'm just. This movie is
are
just.
you showing your thoughts on this? Because you
Thi-
okay, so you all into yourself. You done close your eyes and go ahead, go ahead, say what you because I know this one hit you.
There were so many points that okay. I have my own black man code, and there are, I think most of us do, not just a man code, but there is a black man code, and there are certain things you just don't do
Like
when
what?
it comes to black women.
Like what?
Like, to watch this film, 30 minutes in, he didn't hit a few things that you just don't do. You do not degrade, belittle, go engage in a tete-a-tete with another black woman. You do not do that. Now, is it right for her to throw the kind of shots that she was throwing at him? Absolutely not. But regardless to that point, you do not sit there and engage in a let's see how deep I can put the knife in and twist it. I'm
Well,
not. I'm not doing that with you.
well, let me just say this. This let's just go back because you said does it matter that she was throwing rocks basically and
Yeah,
throwing
yeah.
stones. But wait a minute. And again, we are about to mess this up if you have not seen the film. We don't know until later on that the first shot came with the little shitty comment he makes about her not being involved in film. She doesn't work in film. That just seemed like a regular kind of, oh, well, she does something else until you find out that she's actually an actress. So that's the first shot. It's subtle and you miss it because you don't know the backstory. But this is, to me, there's no, this brother doesn't have code about his dealing with women. I don't
He
think it
doesn't.
has anything to do with black women because here's the other thing about Malcolm is that we learned from the story that Malcolm is not around the way brother.
Right.
This is a brother of means and who's grown up in a high upper middle class family based on this brother's not had to struggle. That's probably why this he can be a filmmaker because he's come from a family of means and he's able to afford the luxury of filmmaking and going to college and getting a degree in filmmaking because he comes from that kind of family where he can do that. He can afford to do that. So this is someone who I wouldn't be surprised and I'm because I'm reading into it that before her, he probably dated white women before her. Because one of the things that I think is important about the character is that Zendaya visually is you can tell she's a person of color, but is close enough to be white for this for what do you she does she's
No, no,
biracial
no.
in real life.
I
But
don't
for this
doubt you did.
character I think that when you talk about code I don't think he has black this character is about I don't there's a woman there's a code for black women. I don't think he has code for any women because I don't think necessarily I wouldn't get from this character that he has dated exclusively black women, probably the fact that she's so light and so thin and has kind of this very white aesthetic to a certain degree with her thinness and being long haired and light skin that that's kind of his aesthetics. He hasn't really been with a lot. I mean, I wouldn't imagine this
Really?
character has been with a lot of black women, maybe a few
Because
here and there. So that code for treating black women a certain way, I wouldn't even think would apply to this character. But I like the fact that you feeling watching it as a black man thought that or felt that was the visceral response that you got from it.
absolutely. I mean, I was gonna say, I don't know. I will challenge your observation in one for one reason.
Okay.
Remember, he had a very visceral response to the white girl, to the white woman that gave him that review. So
Okay.
that's I'm like, I don't know. He had a very visceral response, and a whole bunch of you know white motivated insults were thrown. So that's like, I don't know if we'd be the type to date white women because I'm like, he had a ugly response to that white reviewer.
I think that that has nothing to do. I think that if we know from real life that there are many Black men that we discover are pro-Black in terms of causes, but who they sleep with and who they romantically get involved with, that's a whole other story. There's a lot of that
Okay.
happens. Um, I don't try to get me to name names because we already
No, no, I'm not. I'm
got in trouble with,
not.
and I can think of a whole lot of your favorite celebrities. Think of
Oh, okay. Hey,
well, I have to
hey,
go with
wow.
celebrities and people like because if I can't name them people I know
Right.
because people know, but I'm not gonna go there because that's not what
Yeah.
this is
Okay.
about.
Right.
But
But I mean, it's just so much that he did that was just, bro, you're disgusting. And I think the first thing I guess it was a the other thing with this film overall though is why. Like I
why make the film or
yeah, because it's like at the end of it all, I'm still walking away like honestly, I probably could have cut this off halfway through because it doesn't, it just becomes, at least for me, it just keeps being a how much deeper can I stick the knife in? And it's like this is not healthy. This is not love. This is and I know the word is overused and we're almost desensitized, but this is toxic.
it is
Yeah.
toxic. It is toxic. But here's and I get what you're saying. And I know a lot of Black folks were feeling the same way. Like, why are we seeing this story? Listen, I think that when it comes to filmmaking, from a filmmaker's perspective, I think that we need to tell all the stories. And not all love stories are fairy tales. Not all love stories are about two healthy people coming together, finding each other, getting through whatever hardships they come across and living happily ever after. That's not how it works. That's not real life. And this film is so important because I think it shows um, our relationship in a way that we haven't seen it. These are not the usual tropes of this ain't struggling in the streets because we don't have no money. You know, that's that Black struggle in that way. We
With
struggling to find a job. Ain't nobody. Well, I was gonna go somewhere. Well, I was gonna say ain't nobody addicted to drugs, but we do
well,
have
I,
addiction. We have the
with
element of we
respect,
have the element of addiction here, but
yeah,
we don't have a lot of the tropes that we've seen before. He's not, and from what we can see, he's not a cheater either. This isn't the guy cheated on the girl and she's got to forgive that. In fact, we find out later on that it's just the opposite. So, I mean, there's so many elements to this that we hadn't seen. And again, I don't mind us telling our stories, even if they're not pretty, because I want to see our stories. Now, with that, and we talk
mhm.
about the black and white of it. What are you gonna say before I go? What do you
Now
make?
I was gonna say the thing about us telling our stories,
Ah,
the
there you go.
one
You go ahead, because I was getting ready to bring up the point that the writer
yeah,
and director of this film happens to not be black. It's sad to say.
right. That
And
part,
I know
that
people are
part.
very angry with him. There are certain people that think he painted a very ugly black love story. I
And
I don't feel that
it's
way. I don't I think he painted a love story that is unusual. I think he painted a love story that's complicated. I think he painted a love story that we're questioning whether or not it's even love. But he painted a story that I think you could put you could change the complexion of these characters. You can change, they could be two Asians, they could be a white, you're what? They could be a white guy and a black girl. They could be a black girl and an Asian guy. They could be anybody,
it
except you would take out the few elements that were
got
specific
it.
to the race, like him doing the mouth, the Angela Davis story, the whole thing about what he those little pieces. I don't think that it led with blackness. That's what I'm saying.
Right,
It doesn't lead with blackness is incorporated in, but it
right.
doesn't lead with blackness. But it's still a believable black story. Look, you try to get in here. Go ahead, because
No,
that's
no, no. I just had a mini epiphany. I
okay.
just figured something out.
Oh,
There's a song that I used to love, and then I listened to the lyrics closely, and it's like, what the fuck? This is the movie of Van Hunt's Down
down
Here in
here in
Hell.
hell. I said the
This
same thing.
this is the
That's
movie
why you
of
are my
Van Hunt's Down
co-host.
Here in Hell.
You are my
Like,
that is definitely what it is. It is Van Hunt's down here in hell. Yes.
And I'm like,
Yes. See, that's why you my co-host. That's exactly. And another thing it is, if you had to make it a modern day, a modern version, and you change the characters and you made them younger and black, it's kind of a takeoff of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. That's a movie with Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. It has a similar feel. It has the toxic. Those characters are much older, and of course they're both white, but it has a similar feel. It's kind of like what you imagine this couple will be in 20 years. Like if you look at Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf,
yeah.
that couple that you Malcolm and Marie are Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. They're the beginning of that.
Mhm.
And so if you take those two elements, Van Hunt's Down Here in Hell and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, there's an amalgamation of that.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's it. But it's people believe it's love. And I think that what this film what makes you kind of think about, I think makes you think about your love languages, because once I saw the film, I was like, oh my God, I need to check what my love language is, because I was so offended at so many things in the film. First of all, I'm with you. I'm with you. I think there has to be a code. I don't know if it's black code or white code or what. It's just code of love to me. You don't go for the jugular.
That's one of my. I have a couple deal breakers, and that's one of them. I never.
You
l-
never go for the
Well,
jugular.
let me clarify. Just from my standpoint. Maybe I speak for a few people.
Okay.
Um, Love to me, love and monogamy is about trust, and it's not just the obvious trust of don't cheat. Love is about the trust of I am trusting you with information that could
Hmm.
destroy me. I am trusting you to never use these things as daggers against me.
Right.
And that entire movie is a violation
Of
of
all of
that
them.
trust. And she even said it, you
Yeah.
make me regret having opened up to you.
Yep. Yep.
I'm
Yep.
dead right there. Like there's no coming back from that. You have one time for me, one time to use something like that against me, and we're done.
Yep.
I'm
I'm
good. I can never trust you again.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. And when you're watching the film, there are points where you actually cringe.
That's
And
why it
it's
took me 4 days.
and there's no physical, so that people know there's no physical violence in this film. There's enough verbal violence in this film to stop your, like, there are a few moments where I cringed and where I like grabbed my pearls. I was like, wow, I mean, just in, oh, I see, we can't give it all. I don't want to give it all away,
And
but
it's I'm sorry, I was gonna say, and what's troublesome for me personally, I have just little about me. I have a very what I call a very amazing sister circle. There are 4 or 5 sisters that comprise my sister circle that are just awesome, awesome Black women. But I do, talk to quite a few wide range of Black women. And what bothers me a lot, and it goes back to what I mentioned about the code of Black men. I know way too many Black women personally that this is triggering for, that this feels all
film.
too familiar. And it's like, what are we doing? This
Yeah.
ain't never cool. This ain't
Yeah.
never cool.
Yeah. Well, let me give you perspective from a Black woman who watched it. It did remind me of a situation, one, mind you, one, okay, a situation that I had been in where I was dating someone who I knew very well prior to dating them, meaning we had a friendship that had span of probably like, 12 years, 15, 12, 12, 15 years, maybe even longer. And so we knew each other from the time we had been like really kids. And without going too much into it, because this is about what brings you into a place where you come to something like what you see with Malcolm and Marie. And when we decided to get together, it was at a point where I was in crisis and he was in crisis. He was going through a divorce. I was going through transition from being in corporate and having left corporate and not knowing what was going to happen, and like had lived for a while kind of in this funk because my corporate job had stressed me out to the point where I had to take a break. And 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 just so the audience knows, Ross and I are friends outside of this. So Ross knows this time that I'm
Oh
talking
yeah.
about. So so this toxic friend and me being toxic, here we are, not healed. He's going through a divorce, at the end of the divorce, kind of it's finalizing itself. I, I'm in this crisis of, not knowing where I'm going to be, what I'm going to do in terms of I've lived 2.5 years without working just because I was detoxing from the horrible corporate job I had been in. And we had no business being together. But the toxicity got us. Sometimes it's the toxicity that brings you together. You attract what you are. And so you come into a situation, the friend I had, I like the person I experienced in the dating relationship was nothing like the person I knew prior to. It was like, who are you? Like, what did you just say? What you just said to me, the verbal abuse was unbelievable. But here's the difference between me and Marie. You only got you I can't, not I don't care how down I am, how you there's certain shit you can. Oh, I just said it. There's certain shit, yeah, you cannot say to me. There's just, I mean, there was just stuff that I was like, did you just like, I would be like, you like someone says something to you and it's so foul that you're like, you feel like like in that Morris Day song, Ain't Nothing Worse Than Rejection. I feel a little better if you slap my face. I was like, I think a punch would have been better than what was just said. Luckily that didn't happen because Bliss would be in jail. But
Right.
anyway, so all jokes aside, so when I'm watching the film, the point where he's eating the mac and cheese and he's telling her that she's unstable and that she's insane, a psychopath.
As you're eating the mac and cheese
That
she
she's a,
just made for you.
I that brought that brought back. I'm gonna tell you from my own personal. I I remember the moments very similar to that. Like, are you? And she comes out and she said, "Are you really verbally abusing me while eating the egg?" Like the audacity of this moment, like the audacity. But so before I go into the buts, yeah. So I am also one of those women that was, but I think it's not just a black woman thing. I think that's the beauty of this film. I think that this film has black people in it, but is so universal. I think any woman who's been in an abusive relationship and watches this film can see herself, and unfortunately may be too much. I think this film is too much for some people. I don't think everybody can watch this film.
No,
I don't think everyone can get through this film. I don't know, like I don't have a female friend that watched it was like, "Oh, I loved it." Not one, not yet. Now, some of my male friends watched it and loved it. I don't know why. We haven't had those conversations. And see, oh, you know what? I take that back. I do have another film who's a friend who's a filmmaker, a female filmmaker who watched it and loved it. But she loved it for the same reason that I did, the intricacies and the fact that we have a complicated relationship on film. Again,
and
it can't be pretty all the time.
there were little nuances, and I could tell like you picking like just little things. I'm like, and you, I think it's certain things you're only going to pick up on if you've been in been in a relationship for a certain amount of time. Like typically in a relationship, you really don't call your partner by their first name unless you're
Ooh,
picking. Really?
well, I
Think
have
about it.
no,
Really,
I
because
have
I
like
like I can tell you for myself, it's always babe or something like that. I rarely say her first name unless I'm either being funny or I'm being very deathly serious. And now I'm trying to make a point. Maybe that's just
Mhm.
me, but it's always, hey babe, babe, what you doing? And it's like, but if I say your first name, your actual name, yeah, it's either for business purposes, I'm being funny, or now I'm just trying to drive home a point. So
Oh,
it's like, yeah, the fact that they kept like using each other's first names on purpose.
really?
Oh yeah, think about it. When you call the person you would, do you actually say their name? No,
Yeah.
really.
I don't
Maybe it's me then. I can't tell you the last time
I think
I
so.
said her
There's a
first
mixture
name.
of both. I mean, I get what you're saying too about how we say the full government name when we try to make a point. But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
but saying the name doesn't is not necessarily indicator of anything. And I think that there's something sexy about the way certain people have said my name. So it just sounded different coming from their lips. So maybe that's me.
Yeah, like I said, just nuance. And I think that is one of the beautiful layers of the movie. You may or may not find yourself in different pieces of it. Like one of the things I thought he said that was powerful and scary all at once was like, maybe you just, I'm paraphrasing, maybe you just can't accept that there is someone in this world that just fucking loves you just because.
I thought he was when he said that though, it felt like manipulation. I thought that that was his way of one upping her. That whole
Wow.
conversation where he gets to the point of maybe you can't accept someone just loving you just because. I felt like if he hadn't stabbed her that many times with all those freaking verbal daggers before that, that would have stuck. When he said it, I was like, you manipulative mofo. Get the hell with that. Get the
And
hell
see,
out
that's
of
the
here.
difference
I'm
between
trying
how
to
men
be
and women saw it.
now you trying to be deep with this. Nah, nah, nah. It is a film, from us just talking about it. I want to encourage the listeners and the viewers who are viewing this to see the film. What I do want to say to you is this is not an easy film. It's there warnings, there's triggers all over. So you say no. You're saying no, you
Yeah,
don't
no,
encourage.
I'm saying no, it's not an easy film at all. I'm in
No.
agreement with you. It's
But
like I think hell, I think I made it through 12 years a slave easier than I made it through this film. And that's saying something. Like I think 12 years a slave was easier to watch than this. Because this was
oh
I took me
God.
4 days. This took me 4 days because like I said, it's just so much that goes against black man code. Like, brother, you and the funny thing is this movie could have been 15 minutes long because me myself, the second she said, listen, let's not do this because nothing productive is gonna come of it.
That was the warning.
You know what? I'm pissed because I'm gonna go get my pillow. I'm gonna sit on the couch and we're gonna talk this shit out tomorrow morning. But you're right. You're right. That's the warning right there. Like this is gonna devolve quickly.
But here's the question I'm going to ask you. A couple like that, even if they had waited, I don't know that this couple, because of all the shit that they're carrying, all the stuff that has not been said, all the stuff that has not been worked through, even if they waited until the next day, the conversation would have still been volatile.
I don't think it would have been as ugly because the emotions, it was so much, it was such an emotionally charged situation from both sides. He was riding the high of the movie premiere and like, I just want to celebrate. He even said so. I just want to celebrate with my girl. And we got all this shit going on. And of course, for the movie premiere, she's on a low, like, this is my life. You're essentially taking credit for it and gave me no credit. So in that moment, everything was so emotionally charged. Where if you sleep on it, would it probably been ugly? Yes, but
Yeah.
that ugly?
I
Not that
think
ugly.
I think it would have gotten there. I think in a couple because I think that when you don't know how to fight, and keep in mind, this is a we're having this conversation partially because of the movie. It's Love Month, it's Black History Month. This is the perfect movie for this month. For if you want to have elevated discussions about relationships. It ain't the movie if you want romance. It is not that. But but back to that. I think when you don't know how to fight, because you've got to know
Right.
how to if you don't want to use the word fight, I get it, but you have to know how to have disagreements with someone. You've got to know you've got to know that you've got to hold back sometimes, and you've got to know when to hold them and when to fold them, basically, in a discussion. And this couple doesn't have that. They don't have, there's no place that they protect, like they don't protect each other, like they'll go any place. And that's what's disturbing about the
Mhm.
film and the conversation, is that, but I think when I asked you this and we didn't answer it offline, so we're going to answer it now. If I had to pick who was the most toxic person, I said it was Malcolm. I said it was Malcolm.
Ah,
I said it was Malcolm. He is the most toxic because he's the one that pursued the argument. He's the first one to throw the daggers first. He's the first one to throw the blows because she's basically, looks, this hurt me, and she's coming from I felt, I feel. You can't, and what he's doing is he's discounting her feelings by calling her a psychopath, by calling her unstable. He's not addressing and
gaslighting like a
acknowledging her feelings,
mofo.
and that's going on all throughout the film. And so if we had to measure toxicity, the brother is toxic, and the, well, we'll get there in a minute. The ending was disappointing to me because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, he gaslighted like a mofo. I think they both did. I would say, and I'm going to say this, preface by saying I'm probably a little biased. Um,
Biased how?
Honest, in a sense of I grade on a harder curve when it comes to men's behavior. I'm
Okay.
not
You need some
excused.
men to do that. Hear that, Kevin Samuels? We need some men to do that very fairly. For you, those
Like,
who know what I just said, you know what I mean by that. But we'll get to that on another podcast. But go ahead.
I'm not excusing her behavior at all. To me, it's not about excusing her behavior. It's simply a matter of, again, I believe as a man, as a black man, there is a code that must be upheld. There is a certain way that you do and you do not treat black women, women in general, black women in particular. There are certain lines you do not cross under any circumstances. So on its surface, I believe the toxicity is even because I grade on a harder curve. He was more in the wrong. Because there's a certain point as a man, you just, and it's right there on the tip of your tongue. And you absolutely want to throw that dart back. Listen, we got enough folk tearing down black women, and we can't be part of that. So you walk away. Save that shit. You do not engage. And she warns you, this is not going to be productive. Do not engage.
Okay.
So who was more toxic? Because of that grading curve, he was.
And it's not just that though. It is about, and here's what happens in relationships. One person feels taken for granted. One person doesn't feel appreciated. So the problem with this is not just what he says, it's what he doesn't do for her, that she's trying to communicate and he keeps discounting. So that becomes part of the issue too, because even if she doesn't say it, even if at the end of the night they decide not to have the conversation and they sleep on it, it's still there festering. And what happens is in relationships, stuff festers. We don't say it, we don't address it, or we address it lightly and the behavior doesn't change to the point where we're just popping off, or we've had enough and we're just done. So there's a big issue here, because even if the argument doesn't happen tonight, it's going to happen, because one of the main issues in this relationship is that she doesn't feel appreciated, she doesn't feel seen. And the other issue is, and I wasn't, when in watching this film, I don't know if it's because she's afraid, like he accused her of being, or because she doesn't feel supported, but she's not living the fullness of her life. She doesn't feel like she's living she feels like she's living in the shadow of his. And when you find that he's a filmmaker and she's an actress, an aspiring act, well, an actress, I won't say aspiring, because once you start acting, you're an actress. Okay, thank you. Um, so so she's an actress, and for him to have done a film based on her and to not consider her seriously for the part is disrespect. And remember, he says to her, the first slight, before you even know it, like I said, is, well, babe, you don't work in the film industry. You said that to somebody as an actress, even if they're not working now, you're going to, that's what you said. And then he says to her, when you think they're making up, and this starts to disconnect all over again after they've kind of, you think they're making up. He says to her something, and I'm paraphrasing, once you find the vehicle that's right for you, and that basically that speaks to you or tells your story, you're going to be so good. The opportunity had been right there with the film they just watched at the premiere. And yet he's so, I don't know if he's just an asshole, he's just disconnected, he's the arrogance, I don't know what it is, but he's so out of touch that he would say that to her after telling her story and not giving her the opportunity to play the lead. So you have so many things in this movie. And what's so funny is that this is a couple that's used to making up sexually, because you see that every time, like he tries to, like the way he tries to cool the argument is to get sexual with her. So you see that in the kitchen when she's making the macaroni and cheese initially, and then you see it again when you think that they've cooled down and they're having this sort of okay, here I go with the shirt again. That sort of make it. For those of you who can't see me, my shirt is doing too much, and I have to adjust. Anyway, when you see that second makeout scene, and then when he says that to her, it's a blow. It's like, oh, you just blew the moment again, because here you go with the slights. Oh, once the vehicle comes that's right for you. Well, damn it, you don't told my damn what? The vehicle was right here. This your movie premiere. You low down. I'm trying to be
And
not say what
the
I'm thinking.
ultimate chin check though, when he tried to chin check her on authenticity, and she went completely into character, and at the end of it was like, and
It's,
that's what authenticity gets you. I'm like, gotcha,
right,
gotcha.
right.
But he was like, well, why'd you do that at the audition? I'm like, damn.
Because she knew that he didn't take her seriously. That's the other thing in a relationship, not feeling appreciated. And a lot of times, I don't know if this is so true for men as it is for women. A lot of the issue with women in relationships is they don't feel appreciated or seen or valued or loved in their love language by their mates. I can't say it's not true for men too. I'm just saying because I can speak from the woman's perspective that that's a lot of what happened. So that's why this movie was making me think, what I know I can't do toxic. I know you can't say certain things to me, but what is the love language that's most important to me? I think I need to reread that book and take the quiz again, because I think I have
I
to
say,
reevaluate that again.
I know mine very well, but yeah.
Yeah. So let's wrap this because I again, this is, you got to see this. But at the end of the day, what I wanted to happen for this movie, and I know, and for other people, they could feel differently. My disappointment was at the end of the film when she didn't leave. When you find out she doesn't leave, you think she did, and she didn't. That's my, because I thought that she is gonna save herself, and I was thinking I was hearing Van Jones. I mean, not Van Jones, Van Hunt. I don't want to get my, oh Lord, don't get me Van Hunt. Oh Lord. Oh Lord, that was a big mistake. Van Hunt. I
Oh
was hearing
goodness.
Van Hunt singing the song in my head. I think of saving myself. And I thought, okay, she decided to save herself instead of I yeah. I That was my disappointment. That for the film. That's my,
Uh,
so we have given the total film away if you haven't seen it, but it's still worth view. To me, I say go see it, or go to get your
it's
Netflix or whatever.
a tough watch. It's a tough watch.
But for you, what was your takeaway, or your, did you have a disappointing time? What did you think about the end? Let me just ask you that.
Um, kind of shocking, but not really.
Really?
Because kind of shocking, but not really. Because it's like you can't, and it's gonna sound cliche and cheesy, but nonetheless true. You can't spell intoxicating without toxic. And those things, sadly, for some people, go in a cycle. The toxicity is intoxicating. And I thought I saw that exhibited all throughout the film. It's like you just mentioned, it's fight, 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 fight. Oh my God, that's an aphrodisiac. and you've got to get to the point where you can cut that off. And for whatever reason, she wasn't at that point yet. It was better to be in this weird, broken or disconfigured, thing of love than
Familiar.
separate and
Familiar.
put your pieces back together.
That's what it is. It becomes familiar.
That-
It becomes familiar.
That's scary. That I mean, speaking for myself, I am so happy I got my one toxic relationship out the way in my early 20s and learned like, let's not do that again. Because I can't imagine. And there's no not anyone's going through it. I hope you get out of it. I can't imagine being in your mid 30s and 40s going through a circle like that. Like
There
that.
are plenty of people
Ooh.
who do. That's the scary thing. There are plenty of, but but mostly when you see people in that age group, like 40s, I think, like when you see your aunt and uncle and you see them together and they been married forever, and you're like, why they married? They don't even like each other. They're familiar. They've been there forever. They're used to it now. It becomes old hat. It becomes what they know. They don't want to do anything else. I don't won't
Yeah.
say they don't know how to, because you got to learn new things, but that's what
But
happens with people.
I think my takeaway is kind of what you said though. This movie for a lot of people is either going to be a mirror or a reminder. It is going to show you how ugly what you're doing is, or it's going to show you, whew, glad I got out of that.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I agree, and I want to reiterate in reference to Sam Levinson. I think that it's not easy to do for a writer who does not have the experience of being in our skin to write our stories. I think
I
that
think the
you said,
I'm sorry, I think the actor and actress, I think the two leads probably had some input on the writing and how to get that executed. Because
I
I
do
mean, I
too.
could be wrong, but I think they probably had some input to make that feel more real.
Yeah. So I think that I don't think there's I don't think we lost anything because Sam Levinson is not a black person. I think for this particular, and I know that there have been a lot of criticisms about films that have told our stories and have not done them justice and not done us justice. I think Sam Levinson. I don't think that I think that this film, because of the reasons that you just suggested, and just because overall the theme I think is more universal than people expect. I think this film, I don't think there was anything that got lost in it being written by someone that's not an African
Mhm.
American or black person. I think this is one of the rare occasions where the
Yeah, and
story seems full and fair and believable and all of those things.
the last thing I'll touch on with that, you mentioned something a little while ago that I didn't get a chance to speak to, but you're absolutely right. With all due deference and respect to the late John Singleton, this is the antithesis of Baby Boy. This is not the hood, that level of toxicity.
Right.
This is actually showing, hey, it ain't toxic, and dysfunction isn't
Because
an
it's good.
income
Right.
bracket. Right.
Right.
It isn't an income
Right.
bracket
It's
because
not socioeconomic.
they good. They've made
Right.
it. It
Right.
is still this level
Right.
of
Right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I think that's the beauty of it too. That's part of the beauty of it, is that we have not seen this in this way with these people, these people, these kinds of African American people. Um, I can't think of another film exactly like this. There's some similar, but not this.
right.
And yeah, I think it's worth seeing. So, and worth this discussion, really. This month of February, where we're talking about love and Black history, this film I think is going to be one that I'm good. It's going to be in my top something. I don't know which list I'm going to put it in yet, but it's
Oh,
going to be. It ain't.
this a one time watch for me.
It
I ain't
ain't
gotta
my.
watch them.
Oh, really? I think there's so many things to learn from this film, especially for people who are trying to figure out their stuff and pull away from stuff and figure. I think it's a great opportunity in this film with that. So yeah. So
I think it's
Malcolm,
gonna be a great therapist tool.
I think there you
I
go.
think your therapist is gonna be like, hey, go, you two go home and watch this.
Right,
Talk about it. We'll talk about this next week. Go home and watch this.
right, exactly. So Malcolm and Marie, I think we gave it two thumbs up. Actually, even as difficult as it is,
Yeah, it's a painful thumbs up. It's a painful
Actually, like
thumbs
a
up. Like,
broken thumb, but it's still up.
ah,
We still up. Yeah. Yeah, definitely that film. So also I want to thank as we wrap this up, um, that's it for Malcolm and Marie, right? Because you're now moving on real quickly. I want to, okay. So watch the movie. So now I want to thank our listeners who have been sending in the emails and have been telling friends. And one listener sent me, because some folks actually have my number. Don't ask, but sent me a text as to where I could get the Cicely Tyson book, As I Am, because Amazon is still sold out. There you go. So I did get a text on where I can get it. So thank you. I love our listeners, but here's what we need you to do, people. We need you to subscribe. If you're not subscribed, listen, first of all, subscribe on more than one platform. Why sell yourself short? You can subscribe on SoundCloud. You can subscribe on Spotify. Can subscribe on Podcast Addict. You can subscribe a lot of different places. Stitcher, if I didn't say Stitcher already. So please subscribe. That helps us grow the platform. And please come to our YouTube channel. We did have some technical stuff with the last podcast, but by the time you see this one, last week's should actually be up. And also for those of you who see the YouTube, you see my shirt is giving you too much tonight. It's giving you, look, I can't even sit back without my shirt giving you too much. And you can't see that unless you're on YouTube. So anyway, before we go, we are keeping our promise to support Black businesses during this month. We need to be doing that anytime. I have been, but specifically during February. For those of you who can see me, you will see I have on some fire African earrings tonight. And these earrings are by a company called Tru Face by Grace. I love these. And even Ross gave me before we
that's dope.
started. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And also, my bindi that I'm wearing is by a woman owned, Black owned company called Nishkami. Nishkami, Nishkami, my lovely bindi, which I've worn this one before, but it's actually one of my favorites. They were saying that they only last like 3 or 4 wears. I've probably worn this thing like 10 times, and it's still very much intact, good quality, and I'm very much feeling it. So I appreciate. I actually purchased these things, but I appreciated that I could buy them and support Black owned businesses, Black female owned businesses, by the way. And Ross has on a shirt tonight for the people who can see us, that says Believe Women, which is a great sentiment. And can you tell us the name of the company that you are
Yes.
supporting?
Comes from a company I discovered on actually on IG. It's called America Hates Us.
Say that again.
The company is called America Hates Us.
Ooh,
And
okay.
yeah, yeah. But Black owned company supports a lot of great causes. 20% of their profits go to a couple other causes. I forgot offhand, but yes, literally just America Hates Us. All is one word. And it'll come up americahatesus.com. And there's a bevy of shirts that, speak to your inner revolutionary. I'll be getting a
Oh,
couple more.
okay. I like it. I like it. There you go. So we have given you a little bit of complicated love tonight. Uh, Nick Cannon, Van Jones, we try to love you. Van Hunt, we love you. We already love your music. We're gonna keep supporting you. Malcolm and Marie, Zendaya, John David Washington. I love the film. And Ross loves the film. We love the fact that you gave us a love story that gave us a whole podcast. We got to talk about the complications of love. So we're gonna wrap this up. I have no idea how long we've been on here, only because my timer is very strange that I'm using tonight. So I don't know. But before I wrap this up, let me tell you, if no one else has told you today, we love you and we want the best for you. Thank you for tuning in again. Bye bye.